Hey everyone, and welcome back. You know how everyone's going crazy over the newest AI models?
It's all anyone can talk about.
Right. Well, today we're going deeper.
Taking a peek behind the curtain.
Exactly. We're diving into the world of AI infrastructure. Think of it as the engines that actually make this AI magic happen. We're talking massive data centers, custom-designed chips, lightning-fast networks. And get this. While OpenAI's hogging the spotlight with their models, Google's been quietly building an infrastructure empire.
It's true. What's remarkable is it's not just about how big Google's operation is, though it's definitely huge. It's the long game they've been playing, investing in custom AI chips and advanced networking for years. That gives them a massive head start.
It's like Google spent a decade at the gym while everyone else was just discovering protein shakes.
Perfect analogy.
So today we're digging into some juicy reports from SemiAnalysis. We're on a mission to uncover just how Google's infrastructure might shape the future of AI and what challenges companies like OpenAI face trying to catch up. What do you think? Will Google be the gatekeeper of AI because of this?
That's the big question, isn't it? Or could this lead to making AI more accessible? Lots to unpack there.
Absolutely. Okay, let's start with the foundation, Google's data centers. And I don't just mean a room full of servers. We're talking about these sprawling, interconnected facilities strategically placed all over the globe.
And that's where Google's been so clever. They saw the demands of training these power-hungry AI models way before anyone else. Take cooling, for example. These systems generate a crazy amount of heat.
Like melt your face off kind of heat.
Exactly. And keeping things cool is essential. Google recognized this early on and has been investing in efficient liquid cooling for over a decade.
It's like that moment at Google I/O back in May when their CEO, Sundar Pichai, casually mentions their nearly 1 gigawatt liquid cooling capacity.
And then days later, Microsoft unveils their first, and it's important to emphasize, first liquid-cooled AI rack. The difference is almost laughable.
Almost makes you feel bad for them, doesn't it? Almost.
But it really highlights the incredible head start Google has. And it's not just about cooling. They're going all in on these massive gigawatt-scale campuses, particularly in Ohio and Iowa and Nebraska. They're not just keeping pace, they're setting it.
So they got the real estate, but what about the brains of the operation? Let's talk about their custom-designed AI chips, the TPUs.
Now, this is where Google's playing the long game. Instead of chasing raw power, they focused on cost efficiency. They know training these massive AI models is like running a marathon, not a sprint.
So it's not about who's got the fastest processor at this very second, but who can keep going the distance.
Precisely. Their latest TPU, the V5e, shines in both training and running these models, particularly those under 200 billion parameters.
Okay, so they're thinking about efficiency, which makes sense in the long run.
Right.
But what about their networking, specifically this optical circuit switch technology? SemiAnalysis called it a $3 billion game changer.
And for good reason. This tech, called Project Apollo internally, is mind-blowing. It allows Google to train AI models across multiple data centers with almost zero lag and incredibly high bandwidth.
Okay, I get that it's important, but can you break it down for me? How does this OCS thing actually work?
Imagine a super fast train network, but instead of people, it's carrying data. Now picture a system of switches that can instantly route these trains, or in our case, beams of light carrying data between cities without slowing anything down. That's OCS. It's more efficient and cost-effective than anything else, which lets Google seamlessly connect all their infrastructure.
Okay, so Google's got this incredible interconnected system, massive data centers, custom AI chips, and this game-changing networking technology. Not exactly a fair fight for the competition.
So where does that leave OpenAI? They're riding high on the success of their models, but what about their infrastructure?
OpenAI is in a very different position. They're playing catch-up, heavily dependent on Microsoft Azure for their computing needs. Now, there are definitely perks to this partnership.
Sure, Microsoft's no slouch. Right, but relying solely on Azure might not be enough to keep up with Google in this infrastructure arms race.
So just hitching their wagon to Microsoft's cloud isn't enough. Could OpenAI just poach some top talent from chip giants like NVIDIA or AMD?
Talent's important, but it's not just about the chips themselves. It's like building a house. You need the bricks, sure, but also the foundation, the framework, everything has to work together.
It was not a quick fix.
Not at all. It's about the whole ecosystem. The data centers, the networks, the software. Poaching a few engineers from NVIDIA or AMD won't magically solve those core infrastructure challenges.
So OpenAI has some serious thinking to do about their long-term game plan. This is getting good. So OpenAI has some tough choices to make if they're going to compete in the AI infrastructure arena, but I have a feeling they've got something up their sleeve.
Oh, they definitely aren't sitting still. Remember all that talk about OpenAI aggressively hiring? Well, it turns out they've been laser focused on Google's top TPU engineers, like really going after them.
Wow, poaching the star players in the championship team. Talk about a power move. What's that say about their long-term plans? Are they really going to try building their own AI chip?
It's a huge sign, right? They don't just want to be a customer, they want to be a major player in the AI hardware world.
Building a Google-level AI chip from scratch can't be easy, though. What kind of hurdles are they facing?
It's one of the toughest things you can do in engineering, building a custom AI chip. It's not just designing the chip itself, but the whole ecosystem around it. Think of it like building a car. You got to build the engine, sure, but also the transmission, the wheels, everything has to work together perfectly.
And finding someone to build it for you. I hear those chip shortages are no joke.
Exactly. OpenAI has to navigate all of that, making sure their chip can actually be manufactured at scale. And let's not forget the software side. They'll need tools and infrastructure so developers can actually build AI applications for their fancy new chip.
So it's not as easy as drawing up a chip on a whiteboard and calling it a day.
Not even close. There are so many moving pieces, it'll be interesting to see how they handle it. Realistically, how long do you think something like that takes?
That's what I'm wondering, too.
Even with all the best people and resources, we're still talking years to develop a custom AI chip. Design, simulation, fabrication, testing. Then comes the really hard part. Making sure it all works together, optimizing it, and figuring out how to mass produce it.
Okay, so while they're on this epic chip building journey, OpenAI still needs to keep up with all the advancements in AI models, right? Which leads us to multi-data center training. Google's already doing it with that OCS technology we talked about, but it's a whole new world for OpenAI.
Absolutely. AI models are getting bigger and more complex all the time. And at some point, a single data center just can't handle the load. It's like trying to fit a whale in a bathtub, you need a much bigger space.
Right. If they're trying to train a massive AI model on your laptop, it's just not going to happen.
Exactly. That's where multi-data center training comes in. Instead of one giant data center, you connect multiple data centers to create a kind of mega computer.
Sounds cool, but also incredibly complicated. Like, how do you even begin to wrangle all that computing power in different locations?
That's the tricky part. You need specialized software and algorithms to make sure those GPUs, which are spread out across different data centers, can work together smoothly. It's like conducting an orchestra, but the musicians are thousands of miles apart.
That's a tough gig for any conductor. What's OpenAI's game plan? How are they going to pull that off?
Well, they're exploring some cutting-edge distributed training techniques. One is called hierarchical SGD. We touched on it earlier, but basically it's like breaking a massive problem down into smaller chunks.
So instead of tackling the entire model at once, you break it up and different parts are trained in different places.
Exactly. That way you can prevent those straggling GPUs from slowing down the entire training process.
Makes sense. And what about those asynchronous parameter servers? We didn't really dive into that.
Right. It's another fascinating technique where different parts of the model can be trained independently without needing to constantly synchronize. Imagine different sections of the orchestra being able to rehearse their parts separately and then coming together for the final performance.
So it's a more efficient way to coordinate everything, especially when you've got GPUs spread across multiple data centers.
Exactly. It'll be interesting to see how these techniques evolve alongside the hardware.
It's a lot to wrap your head around, isn't it? OpenAI is trying to build their own hardware and figure out these advanced training techniques at the same time. They definitely aren't afraid of a challenge.
That's for sure. But remember, Google's not just going to sit back and watch. They've got a massive head start, and they're still innovating like crazy.
So we've got Google with this massive head start, building their own chips, their own data centers, their own everything, and OpenAI making some bold moves to catch up.
Yeah.
But where does that leave everyone else? Is this just going to be a two-horse race from now on?
That's the question, right? Google's playing the long game. They always have, and they've got the resources to back it up.
They're not exactly shy about it either. Remember that quote from Semi-Analysis? The one that said Google will have more TPUs than OpenAI, Meta, CoreWeave, Oracle, and Amazon have GPUs combined.
Yeah, it's a little intimidating, to be honest. Google's playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers.
Well, on that note, it's time to wrap up this deep dive into the world of AI infrastructure. We've covered a lot of ground, from Google's massive data centers to OpenAI's ambitious plans.
We've seen how the decisions being made today about hardware and software and everything in between will shape the AI landscape for years to come.
It's a really exciting time to be following this field. So as we sign off, here's something to ponder. What if the key to unlocking AI's true potential isn't just about building bigger, more powerful systems, but about making this technology more accessible to everyone? Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking those big questions.